Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
I've got some great news for Football Nation Radio listeners. Our supportive partner, Northern Motor Group, is offering $250 off any in-stock vehicle this end of financial year. That's if you take delivery before the 30th of June. With 8 big car brands, MG, Nissan, Kia, Isuzu Ute, Jeep, Ram, Samsung, Peugeot and Pacific Caravans, it's literally a one-stop shop for all your driving needs. Plus, with over 150 quality pre-owned vehicles, Northern Motor Group really does have your next vehicle purchase ready and waiting. Don't wait. Visit www.northernmotorgroup.com.au today. They're in Grimshaw Street, Bundoora, and tell them George sent you. LMCT 6595.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.
Yes, well, welcome and delighted to have you with us. It's State of Our Football Nation on Football Nation Radio and a couple of special guests. One is my former producer, Athos Syrianos, one of my co-hosts. And lo and behold, he's back. It must be the World Cup fever, Athos.
It sure is, George. It's quite a buzz anywhere around Australia at the moment, and even more so for me because I'm back in the studio with you, albeit virtually, but very excited. We're 2.5 hours away from a kickoff in Sydney in front of 80,000 people for the Matildas opening match. So it should be a hell of a night.
I should break the news to you. We've got a special guest over your shoulder. He's an old soccer. He's actually a wonderful young guy, but he's looking a little tired. We're going to find out a bit more about him. His name is Peter Raskopoulos. He's been a part of the furniture at Sydney Olympic for a lifetime. I remember him as this brash, young, super talented midfielder who burst onto the scene in the early 80s when I was on, I think, SBS in those early days. And look at him. We caught up the other day, believe it or not, Athos, at the Australia-France game, the Matildas playing France at what was Marvel Stadium. I hadn't seen him in a lifetime, and he was big as life, rocked in the door. Mind you, he didn't recognise me, but I recognised him.
That's not true. That's not true, Athos.
Peter Raskopoulos, welcome to the show, mate. It's fantastic to have you.
Thank you, George.
And can I just say, hey, guys, the World Cup is actually underway. In Auckland, it's Norway, New Zealand, because they're the co-hosts along with Australia, and the game is underway. So we're waiting to see how that's going to turn out. And it's been a big day, of course, in New Zealand. Started off early this morning with what was a gunman storming onto a building site, shooting a couple of people dead before he was killed by police. He's also injured a number of other people. There were, fears that it might disrupt the World Cup. Thankfully, that was attended to by the brave policemen and women of the New Zealand Police Force. And of course, they discovered that it was a guy who's known to police, who had a bit of a history with mental health. And they've quickly attended and sorted that out. And we're now waiting and hoping that the people who were wounded, there were about 6 others who were wounded. 2, of course, have been killed, and our thoughts go out to their families. So it's been a tough day in New Zealand, but the game is finally underway, and the World Cup down under has started. Peter Raskopoulos, what does it mean to you? Because you were part of the World Youth Cup, which came to Australia in '81.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience, George, and especially for the players. I can guarantee you that whatever experience you have in life, that those players, when they walk into that stadium tonight, that you just can't replicate that feeling they're going to get ever. And I'm sure they'll talk about it after the first game. But it's just an amazing feeling, and it's an exciting time for us. I mean, World Cup, the Women's World Cup. And we're a live chance to get in at least the top 4.
Now, you didn't get a chance to play at Stadium Australia because there was none built. It didn't come along until the 2000 Sydney Olympics, which was a magnificent, Olympiad. And Australia did, with the 60,000 volunteers, did show itself in pretty good light. And people are still raving about the wonderful Sydney Olympic Games. Now, where did you play your big games?
Well, we played at the old Sydney Sports Ground. So it was the wooden stadium, and it was jam-packed with 45,000. But the atmosphere was enormous because the stadium was very close to the sidelines. So, we only had 45,000 compared to the 85,000 tonight. But still, it was just an unbelievable feeling.
Tell me something. The difference now and the difference then. That was the Youth Cup. It was the men's competition, or the boys' competition. You guys were on the cusp of long careers in the game, but you also had, just as the women are having tonight, the expectation of a whole nation. Did you feel that pressure?
You feel the pressure, and I think that drives you to succeed in many ways. A fear of failure.
Yeah.
So I think that drives you more than anything else, because you feel the pressure of the nation. You feel the pressure of, you're not letting your teammates down, your family. I don't know if the correct terminology is embarrassing yourself, but you feel that pressure of failure, and that just drives you. And I'm sure even with the experience that we have, because we have got some very experienced Matildas that are playing, all over the world, and then we've got the younger ones. But I think the way I've seen them play in the last couple of games, and just from the outside looking in, we seem like we've got a pretty level-headed bunch of young ladies that'll do us very proud.
What did you make of the opening half last week at Marvel Stadium when we took on the French? They played that opening 15, 20 minutes was played at breakneck speed.
Yeah, it was, George. But look, through my experiences, those games really don't mean much.
Yep. Because,
you've got 4 or 5 days to when the serious stuff comes. Players are, in a way, looking after themselves. The worst result for any player there is to get injured and miss a game or a tournament or things like that. So, but they were impressive, and they've been impressive along the way. I think originally we were a little bit critical about the early results when the new coach took over, but I think he's set himself right to peak at the right time.
You talk about that peaking at the right time. It's a very interesting platform. We've got Gustafsson, the coach of the Matildas now, It was Alan Stajic in the early times that we thought was going to bring the Matildas to a World Cup down under. He's brought the Philippines to the World Cup. They've actually qualified, something that we didn't have to do. Our girls, as the New Zealand was it the Black Ferns? They also didn't have to qualify as co-hosts. They were the team basically at home and waiting for the world to come to their neck of the woods. So it's all about now being prepared and ready for the challenge. But Alan Stajic has done a remarkable job when you think he took a side that's never made it to the World Cup and he got them playing a type of football that's not that foreign from what the Australian Matildas were playing under his watch. Have you seen any of the Philippines games at all, Peter?
No, I haven't, George. But I've got a good mate that I employed at Sydney Olympic, and you know Jimmy Fraser. Yep. He was their goalkeeping coach, and he got him, and then he stepped away. But he got invited over there, and I had a quick chat to him. But look, I mean, you know, Alan's a great coach as well. You know, he might have been coaching Australia under different circumstances, but I think for him to get the Philippines to the World Cup is a great achievement. A great achievement.
Athos, you've got something I can see. You've got a question or three.
I was just going to comment that as far as tonight goes, I don't think the Matildas could be better placed. I think their preparation has been excellent. And I think a lot of that has been because Football Australia is almost not woken up, but they're giving our national teams the best chance to succeed. We've seen it yesterday. The Socceroos have been scheduled to play Mexico. Later this year, they'll play England as well. Before this tournament started, the Matildas, I think, played 5 of the top 10 ranked nations, which I think goes a long way. They might be friendlies, but it exposes them to that top end talent and lets them see some of the tricks and tricks of the trade that sort of separate the great from the good side. So I think Football Australia deserve a real pat on the back. I thought it was a good showing against France. It was probably our strongest team. I don't think there'll be too many changes from that team tonight, although they will be sweating on Tamika Yallop's fitness. It'll be interesting to see whether she appears tonight after she pulled up sore from that game. But that appears to be the only blemish from, I think, a flawless 12 months into the World Cup.
Alana Kennedy, does she start with Claire Hunt?
Well, they were quite a formidable pair. They were tested quite early. I think that the French identified that it could have been a shaky centre-back pairing, but the two of them held their nerve tremendously, especially Claire Hunt, who is the less experienced of the two of them. We know Alana Kennedy's had a remarkable career. You've also got Claire Polkinghorne there as well, so we'll be watching social media over the next hour or so to see the starting lineup, but I'd be happy with those two starting. But we do know that I think a lot of the attention will go to further up the pitch. We know that the Matildas will come out all guns blazing, and it'll be, I think, a case of whether they can control their own nerves and see how they go, and whether they have that composure that a lot of the host nations perhaps don't have when they step out for that opening match.
It's interesting you mentioned Claire Hunt and that coupling with Alana Kennedy. Last week, Peter and I were talking as we were watching those opening exchanges, and the French had 2-3 chances very early on in a counter-attack, where if it wasn't for that central pairing closing down the attacks, the goalkeeper would have been tested. Peter?
No, absolutely.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the defending was great. It was the first time I watched the Matildas live.
Yep.
And what I was impressed with the defence is the speed that those two central defenders had to close down some dangerous situations, which plays a big role in these big games. But getting back to your point, Athos, about giving credit to the FFA, well, they should have learned, and I think they did learn from their mistakes previously. And the point I'm trying to make is that there was pressure previously on our coach with the Matildas when he wasn't getting the results. If we go back on 2 occasions, if you remember, the press and Mr. Gallup, our CEO, put pressure on Ange when they were concerned about winning the Asian Cup. And then Ange was saying, look, you know, I've got a saying whether it's AFL or rugby league or football in Australia, March, April, May is irrelevant if you're not there in September. So all these good quality coaches, including Arnie, right, prepare their teams for the grand final. The grand final is the World Cup. So, I think the FFA learned from the mistakes where they were putting pressure on their coaches that they weren't performing that well 12 months out or 18 months out. And everything's a bit of an experiment to make sure the players are up to it, to make sure, the tactics are right and things like that. And credit to Gustav and credit to Arnie and obviously Anne. So, and credit to the FFA. They did learn from their mistakes from those previous experiences.
Peter Raskopoulos, you captained the sides in those days in 81. You were part of that inner sanctum. What's the added pressure there of that role?
Well, look, if you've got good people around you, George, like anything in life, that pressure, you feel a slight pressure, but it's not great. Because it's like anything, whether it be the business model or the sporting model or the captain of the team, if you've got good quality people around you, there's other leaders on the park as well. Your captains are not the only leaders on the park. And in that 81, we had some great leaders on the park. Your Crinos, your Blairs, your Mitchells, all those players, they were leaders in their own little way. So, and with Sammy Kerr tonight, she's got some great experience around her. She's got some great players around her. So, sometimes, it's a role. There's a little bit of pressure to it. There's probably more pressure before the game doing the media and after the game doing the media rather than during that 90 minutes on the park.
There's a dynamo in the midfield for Australia called Katrina Gorry. She is quite something. Became a mother. We missed her out. We missed her from that side, but she hasn't missed a beat coming back. In fact, she looks fitter. She looks tougher, and I think she's geared to go. It's a tremendous thing when you've been challenged, when you've been out of that team, and you've had the opportunity to see them playing. She would have yearned to be back in that squad. Well, she's back in the squad now, and as you saw. And as we saw all last week, she was consistently driving the Matildas forward. She'd be picking up the pieces, spinning it out to the left side, then crossing the play. And she was that little dynamo. I'm thinking she's one of those vital cogs that we need to assert themselves very early on. Peter?
Yeah, absolutely. She showed us on Friday night down at Melbourne that, like you said, she if we do have the success, we hope to have success. I think she's gonna have to play well, and I'm sure she will play well. And like you said, she's a very, very vital cog. Maybe she doesn't get the accolades of the Kerrs and even your favourite young girl Fowler,
Mary Fowler, yeah.
But she is so important to this team.
I'll tell you something else that's very important. The desire, and I want to hear from Athos here too. Caitlin Ford, one of those players who has all the talent in the world. I just want to see her put it together. Am I being too harsh, Athos?
I don't think it's harsh to say that, particularly from a Matilda's perspective. And I think this is the perfect tournament for her. We saw that she was incredibly eager to score against France, and perhaps on another day would have had 2 goals or 3. So it's quite a formidable forward line having her and Samantha Kerr up there, 2 of the best strikers in the Women's Super League in the UK. They play for rival teams, but hopefully they can produce some goals for the Matildas. And I think, again, like we said earlier, that first 10, 20 minutes will be telling. They're coming up against an Ireland side that is perhaps there for the taking. This is their first ever World Cup, and their star player, Denise O'Sullivan, is under an injury cloud because they played a brutal 20-minute match against Colombia, which had to be called off. So their warm-up their warm-up game before the World Cup was called off 20 minutes in. So that's about as well as they're tracking preparation-wise. But, of course, as we know, once that whistle goes, all that kind of preparation can go out the window. So not only are they up against an Irish side that is perhaps there for the taking, but the way that the expectation is through the roof. I think aside from the World Cup final, this will be the most heavily watched match, particularly for Australian fans. I think the success of this match will go a long way to see particularly how the casual fans follow the Matildas. I think if the Matildas win tonight, then you will take them on that journey. But if they lose, it might be hard to bring them back. So there's a lot of expectation, but hopefully they can remain composed and find a way to win.
Athos Sirianos, our special guest Peter Raskopoulos last week, was screaming at the top of his voice every time the Matildas were charging. He kept saying, shoot, shoot. And they kept wanting to run the ball into the back of the goal. Peter, is that something that we need to build into our forward line, from very, very young? It seems to me that they all want to pass, they want to look pretty, but there's nothing more galvanizing, there's nothing more exhilarating than watching, for example, and dare I say it, a Peter Lorimer or a Mark Viduka unleashing something, or a Timmy Cahill unleashing something that just lifts the roof. If there was a roof at Stadium Australia, if someone was to strike a goal like that, it would lift the roof without the aid of 83,000 people.
Yeah, I think you'll see tonight it'll change, George. I mean, look, the great players in the great strikers around the world, they're all selfish. And well, it's a fact. And our Matildas last week, like you said, I think we were trying to be too nice and we're trying to maybe help each other get into the game and things like that. But I think you'll see a difference tonight. I think you'll see that, hopefully they'll have the composure and the controlled aggression, that adrenaline will be pumping from, the time they walk into that stadium. But I think you'll definitely see some strikes, outside the box, and some first-time strikes that we were saying, they were taking too many touches, trying to be too nice, trying to walk the ball into the back of the net. But I think that was just basically, like I said, it was a bit of a trial game, even though it was a big game against France. But I think we'll see something different tonight.
I'm hoping also to see an award-winning performance from the Seven Network. They've been much maligned in the past. They haven't really been the sort of go-to network that I, was thinking would deliver a terrific result. But on early form, and from some of the exposure and some of the repetition that I've seen, it augurs well. You've got young Peacock, you've got Mel McLaughlin, you've got an array of young media figures, and they're all primed, and I think they're getting the World Cup fever well and truly into their nostrils, because I'm expecting Seven to offer up a terrific coverage tonight from 8 o'clock across the eastern seaboard. And of course, if they can do their job properly, those numbers could be terrific as the competition continues. And towards the latter stages, we might see some record numbers, Athos.
Absolutely. Well, I think, like we said earlier, this match and the final, particularly in Australia, will have some of the highest viewing numbers. I think they'll blow it out of the park. It'll be particularly interesting considering that they are competing with a little old competition currently played at Old Trafford, although we won't mention that at the moment. But...
Well, don't mention the cricket, because I think Peter Raskopoulos is watching.
No. Mate, I'd rather. I was a cricketer. My son was a cricketer, but to be honest with you, I've sort of gone away from the 5-day test. It's like watching the grass grow, and I don't want to insult any cricket followers.
Well, hang on. We've got to be fair. The cricket, this what they call it, was it Bazball? Athos, what are they calling it? Bazball?
Allegedly, that's what they.
Yeah. Well, the only ball we want to see is Ange ball. Ange Postecoglou taking on the world. By the way, while we're on that subject, what have you made of this this ascendancy from a young guy from South Melbourne called Ange Postecoglou? What have you made of it, Peter?
Look, I just think it's exciting. I think it's exciting. Number one, because he was a young NSL player for South Melbourne.
Yep.
Went through the ranks, took over South Melbourne. And you've got to give credit to Ange for this. Don't forget he had a few hurdles along the way when he was sacked with the youth team. he had a few hurdles along the way with the media that criticised him the way when he took over in between the success that he had when he took over the Australian team. And look, he was so resolute, so strong-minded. Me personally, I didn't think in our lifetime we'd see an Australian coach an EPL team. And we're talking about one of the big teams. We're not talking about, what are the bottom rungs. And, he's and the other great thing is obviously he's got a little bit of Greek DNA in him, which makes us even more prouder.
Have you made him an honorary Sydney Olympian?
He's always been an honorary Sydney Olympian. I mean, we had some great tussles with Ange in the NSL, and we played with the Socceroos together. But look, he the drive, the passion, and he deserves all the success that he's got. And look, I think at the moment you've got to say from day dot, he's the best footballing coach this country has had in any code. In any code.
Big call from someone who loves their sport. Well, I'm backing you, but I agree with you. It's a huge call.
Tell me, we're in a worldwide sport. We're talking about one of the biggest teams in the AFL. We're not talking about, and I don't want to be detrimental, but there's 18 teams playing AFL. There's maybe 50 teams or 60 teams around the world playing rugby league. When we talk about the salary caps and things like that in the AFL, I mean, what the rugby league playing in their salary cap through the whole teams, I think Messi earns in 3 months. Do you know what I mean? So we've got to take all that into perspective. And
you might have to recalibrate that number, because based on some of the numbers I've seen since he joined Miami, it might only be month's worth of work. Let's take a short break. Our special guest is Peter Raskopoulos via Zoom from Sydney. Athos Sirianis running the show in our studios, the FNR studios in beautiful downtown Docklands. And, of course, yours truly stationed via Zoom in a place called Port Melbourne. Back with more in just a moment.
Providing superior civil engineering solutions and advice to developers, local government and service authorities across Australia. Lanco Group is known for delivering sustainable, efficient solutions. By working closely with clients, Lanco Group is able to meet the complex infrastructure requirements for residential, commercial and industrial developments on time, on budget. Find out more at lancogroup.com.au. Lanco Group, your business partner for engineering solutions.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website dkpco.com.au or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
I've got some great news for Football Nation Radio listeners. Our supportive partner, Northern Motor Group, is offering $250 off any in-stock vehicle this end of financial year. That's if you take delivery before the 30th of June. With 8 big car brands, MG, Nissan, Kia, Isuzu Ute, Jeep, Ram, Samsung, Peugeot and Pacific Caravans, it's literally a one-stop shop for all your driving needs. Plus, with over 150 quality pre-owned vehicles, Northern Motor Group really does have your next vehicle purchase ready and waiting. Don't wait. Visit www.northernmotorgroup.com.au today. They're in Grimshaw Street, Bundoora, and tell them George sent you. LMCT 6595.
Are you looking to change your destiny in life? Be your own boss? Start your own business? If you are, you need people who understand your needs and are committed to helping you make it happen. At DKP & Co Chartered Accountants, we are more than just accountants. We are business advisors, taxation consultants, and strategists that specialise in setting up businesses. We understand the client and give them the very best customised advice and strategies to achieve their goals. Visit our website, dkpco.com.au, or give us a call today on 03 9023 9370. Fast, proactive, personal. That's DKP & Co Chartered Accountants.
You're listening to the State of Our Football Nation on FNR.
Well, welcome back to the program. Our special guest, Peter Raskopoulos in Sydney, Athos Syrianos in Docklands, and yours truly in Port Melbourne. And I believe there's been a score. We've actually broken the duck. The World Cup is not only underway, it's happening in New Zealand, in Auckland. It's New Zealand, the co-hosts taking on Norway. And what's happened, Athos?
Well, it was said co-host George that has scored the first goal of the 2023 Women's World Cup. It's Hannah Wilkinson, who I'm sure many W League fans and A-League W fans know very well from her Melbourne City days. She has the first goal of the World Cup straight after half-time in the 48th minute. We're about an hour into that game, and as things stand, New Zealand hold a 1-0 lead. So one of the co-hosts are getting it done so far, and now it's over to you, Australia.
Yeah, it is actually. And just think about it. 8 o'clock, it happens on the eastern seaboard. It'll be Australia at Stadium Australia taking on the Matildas at Stadium Australia taking on the Republic of Ireland. Peter Raskopoulos, a city girl, a Melbourne city girl, has scored the opening goal of the World Cup.
Well, there you go. So we've got some form of to cheer about for New Zealand, but look, that's a great start, and with only 30 minutes to go, you think hopefully they can hang on.
Oh, look, I could tell you what, if that is indeed the final score, the country would be absolutely above themselves. They were hoping to get off to a healthy start. This is exciting territory, because we were hoping that they would be able to show some poise, and under a pretty good team. Norway is not going to lie down. So for New Zealand, the home side, to get up and score, very, very encouraging. And they say it's packed at the moment, and they say New Zealand is right behind their girls. So exciting times. Let's see what transpires. But it's 1-0, and it's about, I think, 17 minutes into the second half. Is that right?
About that. So we've just ticked over the hour mark. So I'm sure there will be quite a few nervous New Zealand fans watching, and nervous Norwegians watching as well, because no one wants to lose their first World Cup match. But thankfully, if they do go down, there are 2 more to go to rectify it.
They don't have an Erling Haaland, do they?
No, unfortunately not. Unfortunately not.
Thank you very much for that. Now, let's get back to what we were saying. Peter Raskopoulos was talking about Ange Postecoglou making quite an impression, and quite possibly being one of the best credentialed football coaches, Australia, from an Australian perspective, in the world. And it promises. He had a pretty rough start in Perth when they played West Ham the other day. The defensive deficiencies at the back are still there, Peter Raskopoulos. Rasko knows what it's like to get a defence to work, together. That's one thing they haven't been doing with any sort of confidence or regularity.
Well, unless he dips into the transfer market, I mean, Ange is not silly. He knows he needs to tighten up that defence. And it was on show again the other day, which, was actually, if you look at the stats, it was amazing that Tottenham finished 8th with the amount of goals they let in. It's just unheard of, really, that you could finish 8th. So if Ange, with his attacking brand of football, can tighten up that defence, and he's looking at a couple of central defenders which he needs to sign very quickly, I'm sure they'll be in for a very good season.
We've heard that overnight, young Ashley Phillips, the boy from Blackburn, the world, I think one of the world under 23 or under 21, an English 21 star, central defender, about 6'4", has accepted the contract offer to join Spurs. Now he's only 19, I think 18 or 19, but 6'4". They make them big apparently in England these days.
Yeah, well, they feed him well, George. They feed him very well. But he's got a selection of players. I don't think Philip was on the radar at any stage that I was reading, and I'm only reading the media. So, but look, Ange is pretty smart, mate. He knows what he's doing, and he knows exactly the type of player that he wants to play his style of football.
Now, while we've got you here, let's take us back for a moment. You were, I think, Earlwood. Would you start as a junior there?
Correct.
What was it like? Who was your mentor in those days? Who did you idolise? Was it a Johnny Warren, or was Johnny Warren before your time?
No, I grew up idolising Johnny Warren, Adia Boney.
Oh,
so it was more the Sydney type of players, because don't forget, once the World Cup came together, we were in with Raleigh in '74. Then you got the Melbourne boys and things like that, but we didn't have access. I mean, the media coverage wasn't great anywhere except for the Sydney football teams, so we didn't know much about the interstate players. So they were my two great idols growing up, Johnny Warren and Adia Boney. And as a young player, I think I was maybe 10 or 11, I got the chance to meet them both. So that was pretty exciting for me.
You talk about Abonyi. Abonyi, of course, we should mention, passed away only recently, as did the great Rally Rasic, another great. And you mentioned to me a grand character who made it not only a name for himself for the Socceroos in '74, but was a stalwart at St George Budapest, and then of course coached Sydney Olympic. I'm talking about Manfred Schaefer. We lost him too early.
Yeah, we've lost quite a few of those gentlemen, and it was funny because at Manfred's wedding, and I was having regular lunches with Raleigh, maybe once a month or something. So, unfortunately, I saw him again at Manfred's funeral. Sorry, and then Raleigh got sick pretty quickly and passed away, and then a few weeks later we heard about Addy. So it's been sad.
Can you take us back, and for those people that don't know too much about the Manfred Schaefers and the Abonyis of that time, because they're too young, just give us a sense of their qualities, because they were very special, not only individuals and human beings, but marvellous footballers.
Oh, absolutely. Look, Manfred was the toughest nails. The only time I didn't play for Sydney Olympic, I was out for 4 weeks because I nutmegged Manfred in a training, and he kicked the hell out of me from the back and ripped me heel. I was out for 4 weeks. So my own coach put me out for 4 weeks. He just didn't want to get beat. He was a ruthless defender. I remember watching him as a kid, and Ante was such a silky number 9 and out wide, and we got to realise that, even in our era, we were part-timers, and let alone Manfred and Atty, and they didn't have the facilities and everything. So to become the players that they did become in Australia, and, in our era, when you talk about a sports science, we thought it was someone that, added some chemicals together and exploded, or was building some spaceship. What was the sports science, guy in our era? It just didn't, all those little things that matter to players now just didn't exist.
Peter Raskopoulos mentioned something, Athos, that is most interesting. He talked about sports science, which was almost non-existent. I should mention there was a guy called Percy Cerity, who was the coach of one of our fabulous runners, Herb Elliott. And Percy Cerity, and you'll love this, Peter, he believed that only very weak men needed water. You didn't drink water. If you needed hydration, you drank something else. Well, and the word hydration did not exist in sporting parlance, correct?
Well, George,
Yes.
don't forget when we used to play at Pratton Park and Barton Park and things like that, at 1 o'clock we'd be at the Sydney Olympic Club, 3 o'clock kickoff. At 1 o'clock, we'd be having a steak and chips and a couple of Cokes before. No, that's true. You know, get a good feed into you before you go on the mark. Imagine sitting down there at 1 o'clock and an Alistair Clarkson or Popovich, he's eating a steak and chips before the game, you know.
There was a guy called Arsene Wenger, apparently arrived straight from Japan and took over the training setup and the restaurant at Arsenal at Highbury in those days. And the then English, who now revere him, couldn't believe what he was asking the players to do. He wanted them off the chips. He wanted no sauces, and he didn't want the beers, and he didn't want any soft drinks in the restaurant. And it was like a revolution. I mean, everyone's doing it now. Everyone's understood what sports science can deliver. But Peter Raskopoulos, you're right. It was a steak, and there was a couple of beers, just to steady yourself. You've got a couple of visitors.
Oh, it's the grandkids, mate. I'm taking them out for tea soon, so you know.
We won't keep you too long.
No. They're great. That's fine.
That's right. Just take us back to Manfred Schaefer. What was training like in those days, in those golden days of the Olympic?
Well, we didn't get along too well when me first came, me and him.
What was it? Was he asking too much?
Well, similar to Arsene Wenger, I suppose, in the sense that he really it was towards the end of the season, and we weren't fit, and he put us through some rigorous training, and then pre-season started, and like I said, for the 5 or 6 weeks, we didn't really get along too well, and Manfred Schaefer came up to me and says, you got to get fitter and things like that. So the season ended and pre-season started, and Manfred was famous because he owned the milk bottle run.
That's right, the milk run. Yes,
the milk runs, and he was super fit. He was the fittest guy, you've ever seen in your life. So we started pre-season. So I got me back up a little bit, and I said, I've got to prove a point to this bloke. And we'd been training with the Australian team again, so I've come back to pre-season very fit. And I remember once, we're on decent terms, we're not great terms, let's say that. And he said to me after 3 or 4 weeks, he said to me, "You're looking really fit." I said, "Yeah, I want to buy a milk run." He just looked at him, and then he took me aside, and then, I was the captain of the team, took me aside and said, "Look, part of it, he wanted to get the best out of us and things like that. But at that stage, he was very good for our club."
Do you know what fascinates me when you reflect back on some of the players that you've had around you and you've played with? You've been extraordinarily fortunate. You mentioned a guy called Oscar Crino. There are youngsters today that read the name Oscar Crino, but they don't know how talented a man he was. Can you just give us a bit of a glimpse of what sort of quality he delivered and had in his makeup?
Look, George, he was just an exceptional player. He was, you can't say anything about his skill. It was phenomenal. But
he'd stand up pretty well today, wouldn't he, in the A-League?
Oh, he'd walk into
blitz it.
He'd walk into anything. He's very similar to Moy and those types of players. And, the other thing that Oscar had, he'd read the game, but he was a step ahead of everyone else. Very shrewd, very smart. And, unfortunately, and I don't know whether it's the coaching or whether they've got these junior programs, which to me are very negative because we focus on, possession football and, sideways and backwards is okay. Well, in our years, it wasn't okay,
Correct.
in that sense. And look, Oscar could hold his own anywhere.
We talk about your time at Sydney Olympic. You had a very short stay at a place called Marconi, and then you certainly saw the error of your ways and got back to home. Now, I remember home for me was Panhellenic, which became Sydney Olympic. It was Wentworth Park. I never got a chance to play at Pratton Park, but what was your favourite ground in those days of the NSL when Olympic was really cooking?
Oh, look, I had a soft spot for Pratton Park. That's where we got some of our biggest crowds. Barton Park obviously was great for us as well. But Pratton Park, we filled up the stadium there. We played Arpia I think it was a semi-final of some important game, and we filled up, and it was pouring rain. I think we had 19,000. And the rugby league media saying, they're counting legs, not heads. They were averaging about 5 or 6. So Pratton Park was one of the favourites, and that was the time of Tommy Docherty, the era of Tommy Docherty then. And we were playing a really attacking brand of football. We had some good quality players. We had some good quality young players. I still think I probably played, and that's no disrespect to many strikers around the country at that time, but I still think Marshall Soper and Chris Clances were the best 2 strikers in the league at that time in Australia. So I was very fortunate in that way. So it's probably Pratton Park was my soft spot.
You mentioned Chris Clances. We got an opportunity to speak to Chris a number of years ago on FNR, and he told some wonderful stories especially about his time, not only at Olympic, but when he went overseas to play over there. And he also recounted that episode at the airport where he was hijacked.
Correct.
Because he'd been sent there to play for Olympiacos, and he got somehow a couple of guys kidnapped him Go on.
Correct.
Pick it up. Pick the story and run with it. Go on.
So what happened? It was our president and one of the Greek media guys, which couldn't happen to 2 nicer guys.
Well, name them.
No, I can't.
Go on, name them. It's worth it.
Well, it was Michael Mistakidis and Tom Demanis, our president.
Correct, Tommy Demanis, yeah.
Chris had gone over there to sign with, and you might, I get the teams, was it Olympiacos he'd went to sign?
Olympiacos, no, it was
so
Olympiacos.
Through customs, Olympiacos officials came out and said, Chris, you'll come with us because we'll get you through customs much quicker. And Mr. Demanis, Mr. Mistakidis, you go on the other side and we'll meet you after customs. And
the other end, yeah.
They quickly, that's right, because they quickly got Chris through customs, and they were Panathinaikos official, got him into a taxi, and I went over to Panathinaikos, and they were owned by the richest Greek family in the world, in Europe at that time, the Vardinogiannis. And they took Chris from the airport onto a yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean, where his mother and father were on the boat as well. So when Mr. Demanis and Mr. Curtis came on the other side, these other Olympiacos officials says, "Oh, hi, welcome. Where's Chris?" And they go, "You've got him." They say, "No, you haven't."
I learned an awful lot about Greek football. I learned an awful lot about Greek politics in my times away. I caught up with young Jimmy Patikas when he was playing for AEK, which was my father's home team in the early days when he was following the game before he came to Australia.
Sorry, and I should have thrown. I do an injustice because I should have thrown Jimmy Patikas in there too, because he was a great footballer.
Yeah.
I've got to say that because I had lunch with him today. So.
Well, please say hello next time you see him.
I will.
Now, look, I want to take this opportunity. We've talked about 1,000 things, but I want to make sure that you and I get locked in and we do a bit of a pioneer's moment and take you way back to the early roots. So I want you to come back on FNR, and we'll do it properly. It'll be you and me, and we'll do the beginning of Peter Raskopoulos right through today. We'll cover all the stories, or as many as we're allowed to tell, and to touch on some great characters. Because can I just say this? You may not understand it, but I was a young man in the media, and I always wanted to be a professional footballer. Injury precluded me from that happening. So I was forced, I suppose, to take the next best option, which happened to be the media. But I can remember every time I was watching my team, which was Olympic, every time a young guy called Peter Raskopoulos ran on, I grew 1.5 feet on the sidelines watching. And I revered every time you took the game by the scruff of the neck and you led your men, you led your teammates to, victory after victory. They were special times, and I just wanted to say to you publicly what a thrill it was to watch you every time you donned the jumper and you ran out as captain of the club. And I remember saying to Johnny Constantine, now, if we can only get George Christopoulos to come down and have these two, one on either side, running the caper, we could win the National League, no problem, year in, year out.
Thank you, George. You're very kind.
No. That's what I feel. Let's do that.
Yeah, mate. I'd love to. And look, and I appreciate your kind words, but don't underestimate what you've done for, especially us young Greek boys, by breaking the ceiling. No, I'm serious. And when you were on Channel 10, look, I love seeing Greek people succeed. I just love it. Maybe I'm biased in that sense.
No,
but I love seeing young people succeed, and I'm sure George Christopoulos and Theo Salamides and all those kids done great in Melbourne, and we done our little bit here. But yourself and Mangos and things like that, getting into the national media as who you were. We looked up to you guys as well. So I appreciate your words, but don't underestimate what a great job you've done as well, George.
Mate, you're too kind. I'm going to let you go and take the grandchildren out for a feed.
Thank God they're getting.
But promise me, we come back and we do this properly. An opportunity to talk about the career of Peter Raskopoulos and Sydney Olympic and those great players that made our lives so much richer. I'm going to also let you give us the final word on what you expect tonight when the Matildas take on the Republic of Ireland at Stadium Australia at 8 o'clock.
Look, like I said, I mean, they'll walk out on their stadium. That adrenaline will be going. As long as they can be composed, which I'm sure they will, their coaching staff, all the people around them will have them composed, control aggression, and I have no doubt we'll get the right result.
Excellent. Peter Raskopoulos, until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us, and to Athos Sirianos for being the master manipulator behind the scenes. Thank you very much for joining us for what has been I suppose a shorter version of State of Our Football Nation, but we've had some technical issues, which of course some minor problems. But once again, want to thank Peter Raskopoulos, Athos Sirianos, and you for joining us on this special edition of State of Our Football Nation on FNR.
Good night, gentlemen.